Alright guys, welcome back. In the last video we went over baking and we baked our maps, which we can now see on the right side. Now we're going to be spending a little bit of time learning about the materials and a little bit about the UI. We're not going to touch too much on the UI because that can be an own course on its own. So as we work, we're going to be going through the different UI elements that are relevant to this course, of course. So we spent a lot of the last video on the texture set settings, and one thing I do want to do before switching over to the layers is change my texture size to 4K because my computer specs can handle it. But if your computer is on the lower end, definitely leave it on 2K or 1K. So let's now go to the layers tab, and here is pretty similar to how Photoshop handles its layers, meaning whatever's on top of the hierarchy or layer is going to be the one that's more visible. And to showcase that, to the left, we have materials and smart materials and brushes and so forth and so on. But let's go to the materials first so I can show you guys. If I drag and drop this cork material onto our character, he's going to adopt that material. And to the right, we see the layers. It has eyeball, which we can toggle on or off, but as well we have just one layer by itself. If we select this layer in the bottom property section, we can manipulate this. So you can middle mouse scroll up or down in this section to see various options. One of the first is scaling. So if you want to tile this, you can tile this to maximize it or lower it if you wish, as well as offset it, rotate. And if you don't want to see it as far as scrolling left and right, you can change the projection from UV projection to triplanar, which is more of a 3D representation of what you're doing. So now you see we can toggle through move, scale, and rotate by pressing W to go to the move tool, E to rotate this, and R to scale it in different axes. So that's a super useful element that's inside of Substance Painter, as well as here in the material section we can optimize this a bit more. So if you want to keep the texture of the cork but get rid of the color, you can just toggle the color off, and vice versa for any of these. The metal, the roughness, if you don't want this, you want it to be shiny, you can uncheck this. The normal, if you want it to be super rough, you have this option. Or if you like the color and don't like the height, you can take that off as well. And here at the bottom is the color. So if you want to manipulate the color, here's where you do that at. So with that being said, I want to get rid of this layer, so I can select it and then press delete, or I can just hit the trash can icon. So similar to how materials work, smart materials work in the same fashion, except there are preset elements to it. So let's just grab this material and drag and drop to our character. And if you look to the right in the layers, you see that it's only one layer, but it has a folder icon. If you select the folder icon, it's going to open the folder and you can expose all the different layers here. And you can see that they're preset. So you can toggle on or off into the layers and manipulate them as you see fit. You can go to the mask and you can change the dirt level. And those are some of the options for smart materials. So let's select it and hit the trash can to delete the layer. Something else I want to bring up is the symmetry line. If you don't have a line here, it's because at the top you haven't selected. So you can toggle it on or off as need be. And a couple hotkeys and shortcuts are F1. So you can see your UVs. And some of you guys may have used Substance Painter before, so you may have opened your Substance Painter and this was already like this in the UI, or it was like this. So this is F2, F1. F3 shows only the UVs. And let's say you accidentally delete something off of the UI or move something around. You're like, oh God, what do I do? To fix that, just go to the Windows go down to Reset UI. And it's going to bring you back to this. Or you can hit F2 to solo your character. I like to work like this so I can maximize my character's viewport. And really quick over here where it says texture set list. Here are the different your different meshes that we separated by the materials inside of Blender. So the gloves, you can toggle those on or off. The shirt and pants, you can toggle those on or off. Or the character by itself. Now with that being said, let's continue working on our character. Let's go to Smart Materials. And I'm going to use the Skin Feverish material to drag and drop that. I actually like this material for whatever reason. We can open up the folder and you can change some of the elements on it. We can go to the skin, which is the base color. And we can change this as needed. Let's bring this up a bit. This looks good here. You can close this folder. And we can double click to rename this. And I want to rename this maybe skin underscore undertone. It's nice to keep all your layers organized so you know what changes are what, or what layers are what. And that builds a good foundation for you to move throughout the pipeline. Say if you have multiple people working on this project, this is a good way to keep it organized, because everything in Substance Painter is, for the most part, procedural, meaning at any point you can change anything without breaking it. So here's the basic skin tone. We can add another layer, and I'll show you guys how to use a couple of different masks. So let's go to our materials. Let's go to this plastic grip. And if you drag and drop that onto your model, you're going to see that now the whole entire model is black and this layer is on top. It's the dominant one in the hierarchy. So what we can do is go to the right, and where it says norm, these are blending modes. So if you select this by left clicking on it, middle mouse scroll, you can cycle through the different blending modes. Alternatively, you can just select it and you can just grab the one you want. But if you cycle through it, it's a better visual of what looks better on your character. Below the blending modes is the opacity, so you can select it and drag it to the left and right to change the different parameters on it. And our character is a fly, so we want to maintain this bumpiness for certain areas of the character. So we're going to leave certain areas like that. Let's change our opacity back to 100. And one thing that I want to do is right click on this layer and go to add black mask. And what that's going to do is create a black mask on top of our character. And if you start to draw, you'll expose the material that's covered with the black mask. So you see now it seems that we're painting black, but really it's just uncovering the black mask so you can see what's really hidden. And I just Control Z to back up from that. And what I want to do is go to the top and let's turn on symmetry. And you should get this line in the middle. Now I'm going to change the opacity, or before I change the opacity, I want to go to the different brushes. So if you go to the brush tab, you can select a different brush to use. So I'll use this First Soft for now, and I'll change the opacity from 100 to somewhere closer to maybe 60. To change the brush size, you can go to the top left where it says size, and you can scale it up or down to change the brush size. Alternatively, you can hold down Control, hold down the right mouse button, and move your mouse left and right to change the size. And we just want to paint on top of our model to give it a black layer, or dark, because flies are dark colored. We'll maybe change the opacity a little bit more. I want to make sure that this area is really dark. Maybe not too dark, but this is, after all, a fly. also maybe have the belly. No, we'll leave the belly as it is. Let's also like blend this to the face a little bit. And also to make this look less humanoid, we'll have some black strokes coming from the nose as well. And the forehead, we'll just transition this like so. Now that we have this, what we can do is start to play with the different tones of the skin. So let's add a new layer. And what we can do is naturally just paint on top of our model, or scroll down in the properties and change the color to whatever color we want and do it that way. But let's Control Z to go back. And instead of having this layer, I'll delete this random layer and I'll add another material. I'll grab this paint spray, drag and drop. And let's change the opacity of this. Let's also play with the blending to see if we can get an interesting blend between the two colors. This is a fair color here. This looks pretty good. So let's play with the opacity just a little bit. And also I want to get rid of the metal. For the roughness, we can go down to the properties and change paint roughness. And this looks somewhat close to what I want to go for. But I also want to change, yeah, this looks good. Let's right click and create a black mask on the layer. Change our brush to maybe, let's grab, where are you? We can go to one of these dirt brushes, change the opacity a little bit as well, and let's start to paint the cheeks. To change the environment lighting like I'm doing now, you can hold down Shift and right mouse click and drag your mouse left to right to rotate the light, which is a HDRI. Let's change the opacity a bit more. Let's just paint the cheeks in a little bit. We can also paint the chin, and let's do the belly as well. If need be, we can like brighten up around the eyelids as well, around here, around the temporal area, and the nose. Let's just do the feet too to add to it. And I'm going to do the bottom of the hands. One thing I should mention now is notice we can't paint on top of the clothes or the gloves. That's because we're not on that layer. We're working with the skin, so we can't touch any of that stuff. Now something that I want to do is get rid of some of the breakup around the face, which is like the bumps and stuff. I'm going to get rid of some of the normals. So I'll go to materials. I'll grab any of these materials. It doesn't really matter because we have the same functionality. We can go to either, let's go to leather skin. We'll just drag and drop this into our model. This actually looks pretty interesting. Looks actually buggy off the start. So let's blend this to see what we get. It definitely looks like some type of bug. or fly. This looks good. So let's right click on this, go to add black mask. I want to add that to around the face. We have the opacity down too, so that's why it's relatively low. I don't want to have too much and make it look too grotesque. And let's make sure we get some of this on the feet as well. So it's good. For the chest, I want to add a little bit more detail and lines on it. So what I'll do is go to maybe this leather material, leather reptile skin. We can just drag and drop this to our model, and we'll change the tiling of it. This actually looks pretty good like the way it is now. We just wanted these lines to go across. So what I'll do is blend this like so, right click, add black mask, change the opacity, and let's just paint the stomach a little bit. We could also change the brush as well. And if you need to erase any of this, you could just go to the eraser here and just draw over the area you want to remove. Lastly, for the skin, I want to add a red undertone to this. So let's go. We can grab the paintbrush or the paint spray once again. Let's go to the color. Let's give it a red. Let's change the opacity. This actually looks good here. I also want to get rid of maybe the roughness. So let's toggle off the roughness. And the height and the metal. Let's right click, add a black mask, and we can just paint this in. Let's change our brush. Let's get this first soft going. I really liked the look for this. So we can just go to our paintbrush. I had the eraser still chosen, so go to the paint brush, select the brush you want to use, and now we can kind of paint in the cheeks, change the opacity, do the chin, and I want the nose to kind of be a little red, just to have that Pixar look. And we could even do the eyelids as well. We could probably add some of this to like the finger area. As well as the toes. And last thing, I know I said this earlier, what I want to do is maybe, I'm trying to figure out if this will look good. Actually, yeah, we can. I want to add a new layer. And let's name this Freckles. I want to use this other brush. Or let's go to alphas. I think it's actually an alpha. Here it is. Kyle's brush. And we'll go to maybe like a dark red, brownish color. And we'll add some dots. And I'm just middle mouse scrolling in and out to zoom in, change the size of my brush. Remember, you can go to the top left, change size here, or hold down Control, right click and hold as you drag your mouse left or right. That may be too much. Okay, so let's just click, make this smaller. Let's add a little bit around the nose. Change the blending mode. See if we get something interesting. And we can change the opacity just a bit. And that looks good. And this is a good place to save this. Let's save our work.